Mara Ellison was 8 months pregnant when her husband boarded the Greyhaven ferry with his mistress for the anniversary trip he had told Mara was too dangerous to take. The ticket was still on Mara's card, the cottage access code still belonged to her, and the ferry app had just confirmed a witness appointment tied to her mother's house. What she could not understand was why Nolan needed Sloane standing in Mara's place before Monday. The photo arrived at 9:18 in the morning. Happy anniversary, Mara and Nolan. Welcome aboard the Greyhaven crossing. Under the message, Nolan Ellison stood on Pier 3 with his left hand at the small of Sloane Vale's back. Sloane had once been introduced to Mara as a business consultant. In the photo, she was close enough to Nolan to make the lie unnecessary. Mara sat at the kitchen table with one hand beneath her belly. The baby rolled once, slow and heavy, while the phone shook in Mara's other hand. A second notification dropped onto the screen. Greyhaven Title Services. Witness verification moved to 2:30 p.m. Mara stared at the word witness. Then she opened the reservation history. Original passengers, Mara Ellison and Nolan Ellison. Modified passenger, Sloane Vale. Payment method, unchanged. Attached note, owner acknowledgment packet. The nursery door stood open behind her. One wall was half-painted gray-blue because Nolan had started it 2 Saturdays ago, taken a call, and left the roller wrapped in plastic in the tray. On the rocker lay a small quilt made from pieces of Mara's mother's old dresses. Her mother had sewn it for a grandchild she never lived to meet, and Mara had kept it wrapped in tissue until last week. Now it sat in the room where Nolan had promised their daughter would sleep. Mara did not call him first. She took screenshots. She forwarded the complete ferry email to the private address she used for old county files. She saved the app notification, the payment page, and the little square photo of Nolan and Sloane stepping into a trip that still had Mara's name on it. Only after the evidence existed somewhere, Nolan could not delete, did she call him. He answered on the 4th ring. Wind pushed across the line. "Hey," Nolan said. "Everything okay?" Mara looked at the strip of blue tape above the crib. "Where are you?" "At a site check. Bad signal." "Can I call you back?" "The ferry app sent me your anniversary photo." Nothing came through but wind and engine noise. Then Nolan sighed. It was the sigh he used when he wanted her to feel unreasonable before she finished a sentence. "Mara," he said, "this is not what you think. You told me the ferry was unsafe. It is unsafe for you. You're 8 months pregnant. You took Sloane. The booking was paid for. Sloane needed to be on the island for the studio lease, and I needed someone there for paperwork. I was trying not to waste money. You used my card. It's our card. It's my medical account card." That stopped him. Behind him, Sloane's voice came close, bright, and careless. "Noel, Lila says if we want the earlier slot, we have to be there by 2. Noel. The nickname hit Mara harder than the photograph. Nolan covered the phone too late. When he came back, his voice had lost its softness. "Do not start something before Monday." "What happens Monday?" "Nothing happens if you let me handle it." "What are you signing at Greyhaven Title?" "Mara, listen to me." "No. This is business." "It became business when you put my mother's house in the appointment." He did not deny it. She heard the choice not to deny it. Then he said, "You are reacting from incomplete information." "Then complete it." "I can't talk to you when you're like this." "Pregnant?" "Emotional." Mara pressed her palm against the table. The wood felt cold. Her daughter kicked beneath her ribs with a sharp little turn. "You told Sloane she could stand in for me," Mara said. "I told her nothing like that." "Then why is her name on my ticket?" Nolan's breath came through the line. 1 second. 2. "Stay home," he said. "Drink water. Don't make a mistake that hurts the baby." He ended the call. Mara lowered the phone. Her abdomen tightened low and hard, a band of pressure that made her grip the chair. She counted because the birth class instructor had told her panic needed a task. 12 seconds. 13. 14. Then it passed. The house returned in pieces. Refrigerator hum, a delivery truck outside, the wet smell of paint from the nursery. Mara stood slowly, walked to the sink, and filled a glass of water with both hands around it. She called Dr. Patel's office. The nurse asked practical questions. Any bleeding? Any leaking fluid? Was the baby moving? Was the tightening repeating? She moved, Mara said. It stopped. Lie on your left side, drink water, and track it, the nurse said. If it comes regularly or changes, come in. Do you have someone with you? Mara looked at the empty chair across from her. Not yet. Call someone. Mara called Jules Maury. Jules answered with office noise behind her. If this is about whether gray-blue is too sad for a nursery, it is not. Nolan is wrong. Nolan is on the Greyhaven ferry with Sloane. The office noise faded as if Jules had closed a door. Say that again. He took our anniversary trip. There's a witness appointment at Greyhaven title. It mentions an owner acknowledgment packet. ID yours him? Jules did not spend time on outrage. That was one reason Mara loved her. Send me everything, full screenshots, no cropping, original emails if you have them. I'm on maternity leave. You're a property owner whose husband may be using your absence as a tool. You're also the best records analyst the county ever underpaid. Mara swallowed. Jules. I'm checking the public pre-index queue now. Mara could picture the county records office. Scanners, rubber date stamps, old plat maps, Jules with a pencil through her hair and murder in her eyes. There it is, Jules said, pending pre-check. Ellison Coastal Development, Wren Lane parcel. Mara's hand closed around the glass. Wren Lane was the cottage, her mother's cottage. What kind of pre-check? Halfro, collateral schedule for Harbor Line Credit Union. It says owner acknowledgement pending. That doesn't mean anything is recorded yet, but it means somebody wants it to look ready. Can they do that without me? They shouldn't. But people can put ugly paper in motion and make everyone else chase it. A new email appeared while Jules was still talking. From Greyhaven Title Services. Subject: Today's owner verification. Mara opened it. Mrs. Ellison, we understand you may not be attending in person due to medical restrictions. Please confirm whether you will complete remote owner acknowledgement during the 2:30 appointment. Mr. Ellison indicated that an accommodation may be necessary. Mara read the message twice. Nolan had not only replaced her on the ferry, he had prepared her absence. Jules, she said, he told them I might verify remotely. Do not answer from fear. Answer like a record. Mara sat at the table. Her hands shook, so she put both feet flat on the floor and read the email out loud to herself. Then she wrote, I am Mara Ellison, owner of the Wren Lane property. I am not on Greyhaven Island today. I did not authorize anyone to appear for me. I did not request remote verification. I do not consent to any acknowledgement, collateral use, transfer, lien, release, or related document concerning Wren Lane. Please pause any transaction using my name until independent counsel reviews the original documents. She attached her driver's license beside the morning newspaper, the ferry photo, the reservation history, and a short video of herself in the nursery stating the date and time. Her hair was pulled into a loose knot. Her face looked pale. She hated that Nolan had made evidence out of her body. She sent the email anyway. 10 minutes later, Nolan's mother called. Elaine Ellison did not say hello. Do not punish my son because your feelings are hurt. Mara put the phone on speaker and opened a new note. Elaine, I'm writing down this call. You always did love documentation. Did you know Nolan was using Wren Lane as collateral? That cottage is falling apart. Did you know he took Sloane on the trip he told me to cancel? Nolan is under pressure you refuse to understand. That isn't an answer. Elaine exhaled through her nose. Men do foolish things when they feel cornered. He told another woman to take my place. He is trying to keep the company alive. You are carrying his child. Act like part of a family. Mara looked at the quilt in the nursery. Her mother had once said a family without truth was only a group of people guarding the same lie. My daughter is the reason I am not letting this disappear, Mara said. You will regret making this public. Then write that down too. Mara ended the call and recorded the time. At 11:57, Jules sent the public documents. Ellison Coastal Development had missed 2 vendor payments. A bridge deposit had been wired 3 days earlier from the household medical account to the company. Mara opened the account herself. It should have held $18,000 for delivery, unpaid leave, and emergencies. The balance was $6,142. The transfer memo said, Coastal Bridge. Mara sat very still. Nolan had kissed the top of her belly last week and told her the delivery fund was untouched. He had said it with one hand on the life he was stealing from. Another tightening crossed her abdomen. She counted to 16. Then she drank water, breathed through her nose, and called Dr. Patel again. The nurse told her to keep tracking and come in if the pattern changed. Stress can make your body loud, the nurse said. That doesn't mean your body is failing. Mara held on to that sentence. While she waited for Lila's call, Mara opened the small metal box where she kept property papers. The box had belonged to her mother. Its hinge squealed, and for a second the sound took Mara back to the cottage pantry, to summers when her mother labeled jars and said labels were not fussy, they were mercy for whoever came next. The Wren Lane deed was in a sleeve with the tax bill and an old survey. Mara had added a sticky note years ago after her mother's probate was finished. Separate property, inherited before marriage, verify before signing anything. Nolan had laughed when he saw it. You work in records too long, and every breakfast becomes a chain of custody, he had said. She had laughed too. She had even felt a little embarrassed. Now she touched that sticky note with one finger and felt shame leave the room. The habit he had teased was the reason the cottage had one more lock on it. At 12:26, her phone rang with a blocked island number. This is Lila Grant at Greyhaven Title Services, a woman said. Her voice was careful, not cold. Am I speaking with Mara Ellison? Yes. Thank you for your email. We cannot make legal findings, but we can decline to proceed when identity or consent is disputed. I have placed a hold on the appointment. Mara closed her eyes. Thank you. Mr. Ellison is here and has asked whether you can join by video to clear up what he calls a misunderstanding. No, I expected that answer. I needed to hear it from you. Mara heard a door close on Lila's end. Mrs. Ellison, I also need to tell you something without creating confusion. A sample signature page was included in the preliminary packet. I have not accepted it as valid. It is only part of what was submitted. A sample signature? It appears to be a scanned owner acknowledgment. We will preserve it. Mara looked toward the hallway table. The drawer where she had kept Nolan's anniversary letter stood half open. She walked to it while Lila stayed on the line. The cream envelope was gone. The vows Mara had written for Greyhaven, sealed but not hidden, had been inside that drawer. Mrs. Ellison? He took my letter. What letter? The anniversary vows. I signed them at the bottom, in blue ink. Lila's voice changed. Do you still have the pen? Yes. Put it somewhere safe. Do not send it with anyone. After the call, Mara stood in the hall with one hand on the wall. A person could be betrayed in layers. First the body, then the money, then the story. Now even her handwriting had been used as raw material. Sloane called at 12:49. Mara answered because the unknown was worse than the voice. "Mara," Sloane said, "you have 30 seconds to decide whether you're going to lie." A sharp breath. "Nolan told me you were separated." "I'm 8 months pregnant." "He said the marriage was over. He said you were staying in the house until after delivery for insurance." "He told you about delivery?" Sloane went silent. Mara's grip tightened. "What exactly did he tell you?" "He said there had been a pregnancy last winter. He said you lost it, and that you weren't well afterward. He said his mother didn't want him to talk about it." Mara's hand moved to her belly. The baby pressed back, alive under her palm. "He told you my daughter was gone." "I didn't know there was a daughter. Nolan brought you on my anniversary trip to my mother's island for a document appointment using my name. You knew enough." Sloane's voice thinned. "He said you asked him to handle it because paperwork upset you. Did he ask you to copy my signature?" The silence answered before Sloane did. "It was supposed to be for an engraving," she said. "A surprise book. He had one of your cards. My vows. I didn't know." "Send me proof. I need to talk to him." "No. You need to choose whether you are a witness or a co-author." Nolan's voice sounded behind her. "Sloane, who are you talking to?" Sloane whispered, "I have to go." "Yak?" Mara hung up first. 5 minutes later, the first photo arrived. It showed a notebook page. Mara Ellison. Mara Ellison. Mara Ellison. Some versions leaned wrong. Some were too round. The last two made Mara's stomach turn because they were close enough to fool a busy person who expected to be fooled. Under the photo, Sloane wrote, "He said it was for a gift." A second message followed. "He said you had already agreed to the loan." A third, "He just asked me to sign a statement saying I practiced the signature alone as a joke. I haven't signed it." Mara forwarded all three to Jules and Lila. Jules came back from the copier with fresh printouts and a look that meant she had found something that made her want to commit a misdemeanor. "Say the word accommodation to me," Jules said. "What?" "That email said Nolan requested a remote accommodation. There's a template lenders use when an owner cannot travel. It does not prove anything by itself, but it requires a reason, a location, and a person who can confirm identity on camera." Mara's stomach tightened for reasons that had nothing to do with labor. "Sloane, maybe, or Nolan planned to put you on a video call and talk over you. Either way, your refusal needs to be early and boring. Boring documents age better than dramatic ones." Mara almost smiled. "That should be on the county seal." Jules tapped the papers into a neat stack. "I fought a man for using gel ink on a burial transfer. Don't tempt me." At 1:38, Lila replied, "Hold remains, originals requested. We will not proceed." For 11 minutes, Mara let herself believe the worst part was stopped. Then Nolan came home. His key turned in the lock. Jules had arrived 20 minutes earlier and put the chain on. The door opened 2 inches and caught. "Mara," Nolan said, "take the chain off." Jules looked at Mara from the kitchen. "Don't." Mara walked to the hall, but stayed 6 feet back. "Why are you here?" "Because my wife is being frightened by people who don't understand our marriage." "Our marriage is not a filing system." "No, but your friend is treating it like one." Jules stepped beside Mara. "Your lender is treating it like one." Nolan's jaw moved. He held a folder in his right hand. Mara saw the edge of cream paper tucked behind it, her envelope. "Nolan," she said, "where is my anniversary letter?" His face softened at once. He always kept tenderness near the door, ready to use. I brought it because I wanted to remind you who we are. You took it to copy my name. I took it because I missed my wife. Your mistress sent me the notebook. The softness left. Sloane is scared. Of what? Of what happens when a private mistake becomes a public accusation. Mara looked at the folder. What's in your hand? A separation agreement. Jules laughed once. Fast printer. Nolan ignored her. Mara, listen to me. I will restore the delivery money. I will move into the guest apartment over the shop until the baby comes. I will end things with Sloane. But you need to withdraw the fraud language today. You want me to say I misunderstood? I want you to say we handled this inside the marriage. You handled it outside the marriage. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, anger had taken the place of sorrow. If you push this, the company collapses. If the company collapses, I lose income. If I lose income, you and the baby suffer. This is not justice. This is self-harm. Then you should have thought of that before taking our medical fund. I borrowed it. From a woman in her 8th month. From my household. From your child. That struck him. Not enough to stop him. Enough to make him cruel. You don't get to use the baby as a shield every time you want control. Mara felt the words enter her body, looking for the soft place. Months ago, they would have found it. The fear that being difficult made her unsafe. The fear that a child needed a whole family more than an honest one. Then she looked at his right hand. A faint blue stain marked the side of his index finger. Nolan used black pens from hotel desks. He hated Mara's fountain pen because it smeared. The only person in the house who used that blue ink was Mara. Show me your hand, she said. What? Your right hand. He looked down before he could stop himself. Jules saw it too. Blue ink. Nolan's fingers closed around the folder. Mara took out her phone and began recording. This is Mara Ellison, she said. It is Friday, June 21st, 4:17 p.m. Nolan Ellison is outside my door with a folder. I've asked him not to enter. He has my anniversary envelope, a proposed separation agreement, and blue ink on his hand after denying he touched the disputed papers. Nolan stepped close to the narrow side window. You always need a record, he said. I didn't, Mara said. I used to believe you. His face tightened. I came here to fix this. You came here to buy my silence with money you already took. He stared through the glass. Open the door. No. Mara. No. He stood there another few seconds. Then he placed the cream envelope against the glass so she could see her own handwriting. Think about what our daughter hears someday, he said. Think about whether you want the first story of her life to be her mother destroying her father. Mara held the phone steady. The first story of her life is her father trying to erase her before she was born. Nolan's eyes went flat. You'll regret saying that. His car left a minute later. Mara kept recording until the street was empty. Then she sat on the floor because her legs were done obeying her. Another tightening came, stronger than the last. Jules knelt in front of her and counted. Not well, but loud enough to keep Mara's mind in the room. They went to the hospital. The monitor found the baby's heartbeat quickly, steady and furious. The contractions were irregular, driven by stress and dehydration. Dr. Patel did not speak as if Mara had caused them by feeling too much. Your body is carrying a person through a crisis, she said. It is allowed to ask for help. When she asked whether Mara felt safe at home, Mara almost answered yes, out of habit. Then she said, no. Jules drove her home with a printed hospital note, a discharge packet, and a plan. The next morning, Mara woke from shallow sleep to to 14 messages from Nolan. She did not open them. She sent them to her attorney instead. Jules had called an old friend from the county bar, and by 9:30 Mara was on the phone with Miriam Shaw, a family and property attorney who spoke in clean lines. Greyhaven title can refuse to close, Miriam said. They cannot declare a crime. The lender can pause. We can send preservation letters. We can request originals. We can ask the court for temporary financial orders if funds are being moved. This will not all resolve today. I know. Good. Anyone promising instant justice is selling you a different problem? Mara almost smiled. What can happen today? She asked. Today you can put the truth where he cannot unsay it. Before they left for the annex, Miriam asked Mara to make one decision that had nothing to do with documents. What do you want this meeting to do? Miriam asked. Stop the cottage from being used. That is one goal. Preserve the original papers. Second goal. Mara watched Ruth move under the stretched cotton of her shirt. She had been calling the baby Ruth only inside her own head, not because she doubted the name, but because saying it aloud made the future too visible. I want the record to show I knew what was happening, Mara said. I don't want her to read this someday and think I let everyone decide reality around me. Miriam did not soften. Then, when they offer you a clean settlement, remember that. By noon, Miriam had arranged a recorded meeting at the courthouse annex. Not a hearing, not a trial. A document preservation conference with the title officer, the lender's compliance reviewer by phone, and counsel present. The room had cameras in the hall, a date stamp on the counter, and a clerk Mara had known for 6 years who looked at her belly once and then looked only at the file. Sloane arrived first. She came without sunglasses. Her face looked smaller without performance. I brought the notebook, she said. Mara held out her hand. Sloane did not hand it over yet. I didn't know about the baby. I believe that, Sloane blinked. I also believe you knew he was married, Mara said. Don't use one truth to wash the other. Sloane looked down. I won't. She gave Mara the notebook in a clear sleeve. Then she pulled the cream envelope from another sleeve. He left this at the cottage last night, Sloane said. He told me to burn it. I didn't. Mara's throat closed. The envelope was bent at one corner. Her name for Nolan sat on the front in blue ink. To Nolan for 7 years. Jules reached for it, but Mara shook her head. She took it herself. Did you read it? Mara asked. No. Did he? I think he only used the last page, the signature. Sloane's voice broke on the final word, and Mara did not comfort her. Comfort was not owed, simply because guilt had arrived. Nolan came in 9 minutes later with his attorney. He wore a dark jacket and the expression of a man prepared to be disappointed in everyone. Mara, he said. Speak through counsel, Miriam said. Nolan glanced at Miriam. This is still my marriage. It is now also my client's property file. Lila Grant met them in a conference room with a glass wall and a digital recorder in the center of the table. This meeting is for preservation and verification of disputed materials, Lila said. Greyhaven title is not making a legal finding. We are deciding whether our office can rely on documents submitted for a proposed transaction. Nolan's attorney nodded. We appreciate that distinction. Mara noticed the word proposed. Yesterday, that word would have sounded weak. Today, it sounded like a door not yet closed on her. The compliance reviewer from Harborline joined by speakerphone. She gave only her first name, Denise, and spoke with the caution of someone whose job was to keep bad paper from becoming expensive paper. For clarity, Denise said, Harborline has not funded the proposed loan. We received a pre-closing file. If consent is disputed, we pause review until the parties or a court resolve authority. Nolan's attorney said, "There is no need for courtroom language," Denise answered without changing tone. "There is every need for accurate language." Lila placed the packet on the table. Mr. Ellison submitted a preliminary owner acknowledgment and requested remote accommodation for Mrs. Ellison. Mrs. Ellison disputes authorization and consent. We have the original page here. It has not been recorded. The page slid across the table in a sleeve. Mara looked at her name. It resembled her signature the way a mask resembled a face. The first letter opened correctly. The tail fell at the right angle. But the pressure was wrong. Mara always hesitated before the E in Ellison because her hand cramped at the turn. This version had no hesitation. It flowed through the place, where her body always told the truth. "That is not mine," she said. Nolan leaned forward. "You signed papers at home last week." "No." "You were tired. You asked me to handle the details." "No." "You don't remember every paper you sign." Mara reached into her folder and removed a sheet from her old county training binder. It was a signature comparison worksheet, the kind used to teach clerks not to become handwriting experts, but to flag visible inconsistency and escalate. "I am not asking anyone here to decide forgery," Mara said. "I am asking this office to preserve the original and mark the transaction disputed because the submitted page conflicts with my specimen, signatures, my location, my written refusal, and the chain of custody." Lila's pen moved. Nolan's attorney said, "Specimen signatures from where?" Mara opened the cream envelope. She had not wanted to read the vows. She did not read them now. She turned to the last page where her signature sat beneath a sentence she refused to absorb. Mara Ellison. Blue ink. Slight hesitation before the E. A tiny break where the nib had caught the paper. She placed it beside the acknowledgment. Then Sloane placed the notebook beside both. 3 stages sat in a row. Mara's real signature. Sloane's practiced copies. The submitted page. The room did not need a speech. Nolan's attorney lowered his chin. "Ms. Vale has her own motives." Sloane nodded. "I do." Everyone looked at her. "I wanted Nolan to be who he said he was," she said. "That was my motive. It was selfish. It also doesn't change the notebook." Nolan's face hardened. "You copied those pages after the fact." Sloane opened her phone and played a video. The image was shaky. It showed the cottage kitchen table. The same notebook sat open. Nolan's voice came from off-camera. "Just make the M less dramatic. Mara's always starts like she's signing a proclamation." Sloane's recorded voice answered, "It's still weird?" Nolan laughed. "It isn't weird if everybody already agreed." Sloane stopped the video. "I recorded it because I thought it was cute," she said. "I was going to send it to him later. I hate that about myself." Miriam wrote something down. Lila turned to Nolan. "Do you dispute that your voice is on this recording?" Nolan looked at his attorney. His attorney said, "We are not prepared to authenticate anything in this room." "Understood," Lila said. "We are preserving it as submitted by Ms. Vale." Nolan's composure slipped only at the edges. He looked at Mara, not pleading now, measuring. "Mara, this is fixable." Miriam said, "Address counsel." Nolan did not. "I can restore the medical funds today," he said. "All of it. I can sign over the business account access. I can give you Wren Lane in writing, no questions. But if this file goes to the lender as disputed and preserved, Ellison Coastal is done." "You mean if the truth reaches the lender?" Mara said. "I mean if a private family crisis gets dressed up as fraud." Mara touched the edge of the quilt square she had tucked in her bag before leaving home. It was ridiculous bringing it, but when she had folded the packet that morning, the small piece of old cloth had been under her hand. Her mother had sewn it from a blue dress Mara remembered from childhood, the one with salt stains along the hem. Truth was not loud in her mother's house. It was ordinary. Receipts in envelopes, names on pantry jars, apologies without witnesses. Nolan's attorney slid a document across the table. Mutual statement, he said. No admission from either party. Medical funds restored into escrow. Transaction withdrawn as a marital miscommunication. Everyone leaves with less damage. Less damage. Mara looked at the page. If she signed, the money came back faster. Nolan's company might survive. Elaine would call it mercy. Sloane could vanish into her own consequences. Ruth, still unnamed in the world but alive under Mara's ribs, might be born into a less explosive week. Mara picked up the pen. Nolan exhaled. She used the pen to write across the top of the proposed statement. Declined. Then she dated it. I want the title packet marked disputed, she said. I want the original owner acknowledgment preserved. I want Harbor Line notified that Greyhaven title cannot rely on the submitted materials. I want my attorney copied on every communication. I also want it noted that repayment of medical funds was offered in exchange for my withdrawal. Nolan stood so fast, his chair struck the wall. You are choosing to destroy me. No, Mara said. I am refusing to disappear. For the first time all day, she felt no contraction, no tightening, no apology moving through her body on his behalf. Lila stopped the recorder and labeled the file. She printed 2 receipts, one for the disputed packet, one for the preserved original. She handed both to Mara. The paper was warm from the printer. It was the first warm thing Mara had held all day that did not ask anything from her. The next weeks did not become clean. Harbor Line paused the review and requested independent verification before any future Wren Lane file could move. Greyhaven title withdrew from the transaction and preserved the packet. Miriam filed for temporary control of household accounts and emergency restrictions on using marital funds for Ellison coastal development. The missing medical money did not float back with an apology. Part of it had gone to a lease deposit, part to vendor arrears, part to a consultant invoice. Nolan insisted was legitimate. There were calls, there were letters, there were forms that asked Mara to compress her life into boxes too small for it. 2 days after the annex meeting, Miriam called, while Mara was folding onesies on the bed. The court had not ruled on the whole mess. Nothing that large moved so quickly, but a temporary order had frozen new transfers from the medical account and required Nolan to deposit enough funds into escrow to cover the delivery balance before the next Friday. He will call it unfair, Miriam said. He already does. Let him. Escrow is not revenge. It is a lock. Mara hung up and sat with a white onesie in her lap. The money was not back in her hands. The marriage was not repaired. But for the first time since the ferry photo, one piece of the future had been moved out of Nolan's reach. Nolan did not go to jail that afternoon. He did not lose everything by sunset. He sent messages that moved from apology to accusation and back again. I was scared. You made it worse. I love our daughter. You poisoned her before she was born. Mara stopped reading them after the 4th day. Miriam's office received them instead. Elaine left one voicemail before Mara blocked her. You have no idea what you've done to this family. Mara saved it under a folder named what they call family. Sloane gave a written statement through her own attorney. It did not turn her into a heroine. It cost her the Greyhaven studio lease, the deposit, and the version of herself that could still pretend she had been only fooled. Mara did not hate her every hour. She did not forgive her every hour either. Both things were allowed. The nursery wall stayed half-painted until the first morning Mara woke with enough energy to be angry at it. She opened the can Nolan had abandoned, set the roller in the tray, and finished the gray-blue herself. The work took 3 breaks and 1 call to Jules because Mara could no longer bend well. The line near the baseboard came out crooked. She left it that way. At her next appointment, Dr. Patel checked the baby's heartbeat and asked how Mara was sleeping. Badly? Eating? Like a raccoon with heartburn. Support? Jules. Miriam. A woman at the title office who probably never wants to hear my name again. Dr. Patel smiled. That counts. Mara looked at the monitor paper curling from the machine. Does stress change who she is before she gets here? It can affect you, so we take it seriously. But babies are not moral verdicts on their mother's pain. Mara turned her head before tears could fall into her ear. People keep telling me to stay calm for her. Calm is nice, Dr. Patel said. Safety is better. At 39 weeks and 2 days, Mara's water broke while she was making toast. For 3 seconds, she stared at the kitchen floor as if it had sent her a document she had not requested. Then she called Jules. Jules answered on the first ring. Baby or Nolan? Baby. I'll be there in 7 minutes. Labor did not care about legal timelines. It did not care about Nolan's messages or Elaine's blame, or whether the medical fund had been patched through a temporary court order that morning. It had its own clock. It narrowed the world until Mara knew only breath, pressure, Jules counting badly, and Dr. Patel's steady voice telling her that she could do one more hard thing because she was already doing it. Nolan was notified through counsel after admission. He came to the hospital. The nurses did not let him into the delivery room because Mara's instructions were clear. At 4:38 p.m., Mara's daughter arrived with a cry that sounded offended by the world. They placed her on Mara's chest, warm skin, damp hair, one hand opening and closing against Mara's collarbone. Ruth, Mara whispered. Hi, Ruth. Jules cried so hard she had to sit down. Later, when the room was dim and Ruth slept against her, Mara opened the envelope with the old vows. She still did not read the body. She cut the signed page free, placed it with the evidence copies, and put the unread letter in a separate envelope. Not trash, not scripture. Just a thing she had once written when she believed a different man existed. 2 days later, Mara brought Ruth home to the gray-blue nursery. The quilt lay folded over the rocker. The crooked paint line near the baseboard showed if the light hit it from the hall. Mara liked it more each time she saw it. Nolan's first supervised visit happened 10 days later at Miriam's office because Mara refused to let the house become the first stage for his grief. He arrived with a stuffed rabbit and no flowers. Someone had advised him correctly. When he saw Ruth, his face broke open. She's beautiful, he said. Yes. Can I hold her? Mara looked at the supervisor, then at Ruth, then back at Nolan. Sit down first. He sat. She placed Ruth in his arms and kept her own hands free. Nolan held the baby like a man handling evidence of a life he had nearly bargained away. Tears fell onto his shirt. I was scared, he whispered. Mara believed him. That was the hardest part. His fear was real. His debts were real. His dread of failure was real. None of it turned his choices into protection. Being scared did not give you the right, she said. He looked up. I know. No. I need you to hear the whole sentence. Being scared did not give you the right to use my name, my body, my inheritance, my account, or our daughter as cover. He nodded once. Whether it was understanding or strategy, Mara could not know yet. Are you going to keep her from me? I am going to keep her safe. Your access will follow the temporary plan. I am her father. Then duty comes before access. Ruth stirred in his arms. Mara stepped forward and took her back before Nolan could turn the moment into a plea. 3 weeks after Ruth's birth, on the morning that should have been the anniversary weekend, Mara took the short Greyhaven ferry. Jules carried the diaper bag. Ruth slept against Mara's chest in a wrap. The ticket had been paid for with the refund from the original reservation. The ferry app asked whether she wanted to save Nolan Ellison as a frequent companion. Mara deleted his name while standing in line. The deckhand scanned her ticket and looked at the baby. First ferry? Mara adjusted Ruth's hat. First one that belongs to her. Jules had packed sandwiches, even though the trip was less than an hour. "You are not fainting dramatically on a ferry," Jules said, handing Mara a paper bag. "I wasn't planning to." "Plans have not been a reliable feature of your life lately." Mara took the sandwich because arguing with Jules had never once saved time. Ruth slept through the exchange, mouth soft, one fist curled against Mara's collarbone. The small, ordinary weight of her made the whole morning feel less like symbolism and more like transportation. That was better. Mara was tired of symbols. She wanted errands, keys, receipts, clean bottles, and places she could enter under her own name. They stood at the rail as the boat pulled away. The harbor smelled of diesel, salt, and fried dough. Wind pressed Ruth's blanket against Mara's hand. Greyhaven Island rose low and green across the water. Somewhere beyond the harbor, the cottage waited with peeling porch rails, a leaky pantry window, and pencil marks on the door frame where Mara's mother had measured her summers. It would need repairs. It would need money. It would need decisions made slowly and honestly. It would not become collateral for a lie. Mara had brought one letter with her. Not the vows, not a statement. A page for Ruth, folded small enough to fit behind the baby's birth certificate. She did not read it aloud. She did not need the wind to carry it. She only opened it once, looked at the first line, and closed it again. "You were not the reason I stayed silent. You were the reason I stopped." The ferry horn sounded. Ruth startled, then settled against Mara's heart. On the return crossing, the app sent one final automatic message. "Thank you for traveling with Greyhaven Lines, Mara Ellison." No anniversary greeting, no paired names, no witness appointment, just her name. Mara stepped off the boat with her daughter asleep against her and the island wind still in her hair. This time no one stood in her place.